Hey, my friend, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Podcasting Podcast, where passion, purpose, and grounded strategy come together to help you amplify your voice without burning yourself into the ground. I'm Demetria Zinga, founder of the Soul Podcasting Collective, where my team and I support podcasters with editing and production, and where I coach solopreneurs, creatives, and coaches who want to grow their podcast with clarity and with confidence. And if you ever want to reach me directly, head over to soulpodcasting.com and you'll see a little pink tab on the right side of the screen. If you're on a desktop, that's where you can drop me a voice note, and who knows, I might even feature you on an upcoming show. On your mobile device, you can simply reach out to me on the contact page and I'll be sure to respond. So today's topic is one that truly hits home for so many podcasters. And honestly, it hits home for me too, because we're talking about how to stay consistent with podcasting, especially when your life is packed. And I don't mean the pretend version of busy that people sometimes say they are on Instagram or TikTok. I mean the real life is full. Everyone needs something from you, kind of full schedule that so many of us are navigating. And if you're in that stage or you've been in it for a while, then today's conversation is absolutely for you. We're going to cover the mindset shifts, the systems, the realistic expectations, and the practical workflows that allow you to keep your podcast moving even when your calendar feels like a giant puzzle with very few empty spaces. So let's get into it. Before we can even begin talking about consistency, I want to start with context. My context. I never want to be one of those creators who pretends podcasting consistency is easy or effortless. It's not. And the more honest we are about that, the less shame that people feel when they do struggle. So my own life is full on so many levels. I work as a music teacher during the school day, and then I tutor after school. And I recently started offering piano lessons out of my home studio, which has been such a beautiful addition to my week, but it still requires planning and prep. And on top of that, I run Soul Podcasting Collective, where I'm coaching clients and editing shows and constantly developing new products and resources and programs, including a membership and a course that's set to launch in the new year. So that's my little soft promotional first time announcing on this show. But that's coming around the corner. And then there's my personal life, which is equally full. I'm involved in my church. I sing on the worship team, and my husband and I also lead a life group together at another ministry. We have 2 daughters. One is in her senior year of high school, so you can imagine the number of events and deadlines, decisions, and emotional support moments that come with that. My older daughter is a young adult. And any parent of young adults knows that there's a different kind of availability that becomes necessary for those check-ins and conversations, and sometimes those late evening phone calls where they just need mom. Then add in care for our little spunky aging dog. He's getting old, but he's so full of energy. And then there's also the normal responsibilities of home life, like cleaning and organizing, grocery runs, the never-ending laundry cycle, navigating everyone's health needs, keeping the household functional, and yes, my love for scented candles and an organized home, which means I tend to go a bit overboard when I get into my let's make this house shine mode. So life is full. And I'm not apologizing for that. Most podcasters I work with are living a version of some type of fullness. So I'm okay with my life being full, but that context matters because consistency is not something you sprinkle on top of a calm, empty schedule. You build it in the middle of your real life, and you build it in a way that protects your energy instead of draining your energy. So let's talk about the deeper issue that I believe most podcasters are facing. And it's not a lack of passion. Most podcasters really love what they're doing. They believe in their message. They care about their audience. but they often underestimate the time and the mental load that's required, especially if you're a solo creator. And this is not just anecdotal. So I'm going back to some research I did recently, and I found the Independent Podcaster Report 2025. And there's a little section on there that talks about the reason that people begin their podcasts and their commitment levels and some of the challenges they have. It also goes into demographics of podcasters, such as the age and ethnicity, all kinds of things. So you can go take a look at that, and I'll leave a link in the show notes for this specific research. But what I found was that 30% of podcasters say that time commitment and burnout are their biggest challenges. 30%. That's nearly a third of all indie podcasters who are running into the same wall again and again. They're saying, hey, I want to stay consistent, but life keeps pulling me away. And if we're really being honest, the number is probably higher than that, because a lot of podcasters just quietly fade away or pod fade without ever telling anyone why. They're embarrassed. They think they failed. They think they're the only ones who can't manage it. But the truth is, most podcasters are one person doing everything. You're researching, you're outlining, recording, editing, writing those show notes, creating the graphics, promoting your episodes, and doing all of this in the margins of your life. It's not that you're not committed. It's that you're trying to do a multi-person job as one human being. And once we normalize that reality, we can start creating systems that actually work. So I have what I call my 3-to-1 ratio, and this is why it saves me. So one of the biggest contributors to my consistency has been adopting that 3-to-1 ratio. This means that I stay roughly 3 episodes ahead of schedule at all times. I also do a 3-to-1 ratio when it comes to my guest lineup. I like to have about 2 to 3 solo episodes per one guest. But again, I do like to stay a couple episodes ahead. Not perfect. I'm not rigid about it, but 3 episodes ahead is the goal. And if I can get several weeks worth of episodes in the bank, that's great. But that doesn't always happen in that way. And so it's whatever I can do in this season of my life. And for me right now, that's about 3. And this simple shift is the difference between constantly feeling behind versus feeling in control. When you're recording in real time every single week, your podcast becomes a pressure cooker. If anything in your life shifts, like a sick kid or a crisis at work, a family emergency, or honestly, just your energy being really low, your entire schedule falls apart. And then you skip a week and then another week, and then suddenly the podcast that you love starts to feel like a burden. But when you stay ahead, you create breathing room, and you're no longer just reacting to your schedule. You're actually owning that schedule. For me, this looks like outlining several episodes at a time and then recording 2 or 3 back to back when I'm fresh and in a good flow. I don't record when I'm drained or rushed, because my voice and my message, they deserve more than that. I capture my best energy and then I multiply that, hopefully. Then I also save the editing for another day, because recording and editing require completely different brain modes. Separating them allows me to conserve mental energy. This rhythm has allowed me to move through busy weeks without sacrificing my podcast. So let's jump into something a lot of podcasters don't talk about enough, and that is that solo episodes take more mental energy. Now, I love solo episodes. They don't drain me emotionally, and in fact, I enjoy them more creatively. But they do require more research and more planning, at least in my opinion, especially because I'm not just talking into a mic. I'm actually teaching. I'm analyzing trends in the podcasting world. I'm researching what's happening with creators, what people are struggling with, which keywords are being searched for that topic, and then how to present all of that in a way that actually helps someone. So if you add on my other podcasts, I'm researching homeschooling topics for one of my shows. I'm researching entrepreneurship topics on another podcast, and the whole 9 yards. So yes, solo episodes take effort. They take intentionality, but that doesn't mean that they're harder. It just means they require more structure. It's the difference between hosting a conversation or building a lesson. So you might feel the same way, or maybe the opposite. Maybe your solos drain you more and your interviews give you life. The point isn't which one is easier. The point is knowing your energy patterns and then planning around them. So this is where we shift from mindset to practice. Okay. Consistency happens in the margins, the early mornings before anyone is awake, the quiet moments on a weekday off, the Saturday hour where you're already in your creative flow, or just the times when your home feels calm and your mind feels clear. I'm an early bird, so mornings tend to work really well for me. I try not to work evenings because that I like to reserve for family, for dinner, decompressing, that kind of thing, because right now in my life, the evenings is my only time that I can conserve as my self-care time. But I do record on weekends sometimes, and I might use my weekday off pretty strategically. I do get a weekday off because I'm working part-time jobs and businesses. So I get to sort of direct my schedule and figure out what day of the week is best for me to do some of this work for soul podcasting. So the trick is recognizing that you don't need entire days of uninterrupted time. You just need a plan. When you have your outlines ready, it becomes incredibly easy to just sit down, turn on the mic, and get into a flow. You're not wrestling with a blank page. You're not trying to figure out your angle. You already know what exactly you want to say. So consistency thrives in minds that are prepared. And if you've set aside that margin in your life and that space to prepare for what you're about to do, this work of recording your episodes, which I believe is sacred work. So when you're prepared, it just is easier to remain consistent. So here's where I shift into true teaching mode, because if you want to stay consistent, you need a clear framework, something you can rinse and repeat no matter what season you're in. So here's a rhythm that I would recommend for you. This is something that I do as well. I wouldn't tell you to do something I'm not doing. So here we go. The first thing I recommend is to maintain an idea bank. This is where every episode idea lives the moment it hits your brain. If you read something interesting, you hear a client question, or you find a topic trending in your niche, then you're going to add that topic to your list and try to do it in the moment, right? So you don't forget. Second, you want to outline several episodes at a time. This is your foundation. This is how I've been doing this for years. When you work in batches, your brain stays in the same mode and you end up with multiple episodes half done without even recording it yet, but you're halfway there. Thirdly, you want to designate recording windows based on your natural energy. I talk about this in earlier episodes of this podcast because it's so important that we learn to work soulfully, that we work according to our energy and according to how we feel. And a lot of times when I'm coaching women. And so I understand, how to work in the flow of my natural rhythm. And that's what I teach to women podcasters. So this is not about the times that you should record. It's the times that you will realistically have that mental clarity and focus. And as we know, with women, there's certain times of the month that are just going to be much better off for us to focus our energy on things that feel really active and productive. There are just going to be those moments that are easier for us to really focus, and we're at our best and we have the most energy. There are those moments throughout the month where we are just tired, right? And our energy has slumped and we're in that part of our cycles where it's just not a good time to assert a lot of energy into maybe the researching part or maybe the active part of recording. And so we have to know what works best for us, and I just think it's a beautiful thing that we can look at ourselves holistically, see ourselves for who we are and how we operate, and know our bodies and know how we function, know when we get the most clarity, and work with those seasons, work with those flows that we're going through in life, those natural flows, and work our businesses and our podcasts into those flows so that we're not working against ourselves. Fourthly, separate that recording time from that editing time if that's what works for you. Again, I do know people who love to record and then sit down and edit it and bang it out right away and just get it done. But I know that from my experience, that recording a few solo episodes all in one take and then going back and editing all in one take on another day is what works for me. Maybe that's not what works for you. But if it does, this is going to save you some of your energy to not have to go back and forth between different tasks. And if you're like me, don't try to do both of these in the same sitting. You might burn yourself out. You just might. So I highly recommend batching your activities. And then fifthly, stay honest about your capacity. This will change as your life changes. Some seasons allow for weekly episodes. Some seasons call for bi-weekly. Neither is a failure, and both are podcasting. This framework works whether you have 2 kids or 8 kids, or whether you have a demanding job or you're self-employed, whether you have a team or you're fully DIY. Consistency becomes less about discipline and more about design. How are you designing your lifestyle to meet the work that you have before you? We're all, as podcasters, pretty disciplined, I think. That is why we came to this medium of sharing our voices with the world, knowing that we want to do this work and knowing that it's going to take some investment up front. Initially, we're going to have the technology and equipment and the know-how, and then knowing that we're going to have a schedule to actually do this work. So it's not so much that we're not disciplined enough to do the work, but sometimes we just haven't designed our lives in a way that we can fit podcasting into it. So I hope this has encouraged you and helped you to see that podcasting is this lifestyle, and that there's a way to make sure that we're not sidelining anything in our lives that is important to us and still able to do the work that we are called to do. So before I wrap up, I do want to highlight this beautiful review from Jackie Pellegrin, who will be joining us here on this podcast really soon. And I always like to share reviews that I get for this show because it encourages me when I read them. It makes me want to keep going, right? It makes me want to keep doing this work. So what she said was, Demetria has such a warm vibe. It makes you feel like you can be successful as a podcaster. I'm looking forward to our conversation together. So Jackie, thank you for those words. I appreciate you deeply, and I cannot wait for all of you guys to hear that conversation that I'll be having with Jackie. And she is the host of the Designing with Love podcast. So go ahead and check her out on Apple Podcasts. I'll leave a link for her in the show notes on this episode, as well as the one in the future where we are having our wonderful conversation that I'll share with you later. But make sure and go support her work because she brings a beautiful energy and a creative heart that I know you're going to enjoy. And if today's episode hit home and you're thinking, I really want to get consistent in the new year, but I need help figuring out the right structure for my life, then hey, let's talk. I'd love to help you create a sustainable podcasting rhythm that fits your actual life and honors your real capacity. The new year is just around the corner, guys. I mean, I'm recording this in November of 2025, and I cannot believe it's November. So if you're listening to this later, just know that, hey, this is one of those times of the year for me where I'm just like in awe of how quickly the year has passed, and looking back on this year and thinking how grateful I am for all the changes that have quickly transpired in my business and how things have just really taken an uphill tick for me since April of 2025. It's been such an honor and such a blessing to just see this podcast grow the way it has. And I'm so amazed every time I get comments and feedback from those of you who are on my mailing list. And if you're not already, go ahead and do that, soulpodcasting.com. And I'm just loving this work. I'm loving helping you guys figure out how to share your voices and your messages with the world. And this is the perfect time to plan your workflow. So you can book a coffee chat using the link in the show notes. It's a casual, supportive session to help you get clarity and get direction and get moving. But the coffee chats are super, super short. So if you want a bit more of my time and you want really to just have a coaching session, I do offer those conversations as well. And you can book a session with me on soulpodcasting.com. So as always, my friend, thank you for being here. Everything that you need to contact me and to find out more about what I offer is indeed in the show notes. And so I can't wait to come back and share more with you next time. Thanks for listening. If you haven't already heard the last interview, go back and listen to that. I had a great time chatting with Marianne Hickman. That interview was so good because she really shares about how to bring your voice from podcasting to the big stage. So if you haven't checked that out, I know you'd love hearing her story, how she went food stamps to global stages, and now she's this international speaker and mentor. So that would be episode number 85. And I can't wait to come back on episode 87 and share more with you. Getting closer and closer to 100, guys. We're almost getting there. Thank you for listening, and thank you for believing in your voice. I'll see you next time. Happy podcasting.